Hello, everyone. So we're going to talk about culturally responsive teaching. All right. And this is based off of chapter 5. So what is teaching for equity? It's much more important than providing children an equal opportunity to learn math. We need to pay attention to language and culture when planning, teaching, and assessing children. Children need well-supported and thought-provoking tasks so that they can reach higher math proficiency. Also, we really need to think about children, and sometimes, children are looked at as challenges or problems for a teacher or school. But we need to realize that children come to us in many different ways and have many different needs. And we really need to look at the whole child and what they need. And maybe if there's a problem happening, it's actually more something that's going on in the classroom or something that the child has experienced prior, and this is why they're having a problem in the class. So we really need to think about all of that. And we should look at children's language and culture as a positive and welcome the diversity that comes into our classrooms. That's really important. So sometimes math is referred to as a universal language, but this is not necessarily true. So conceptual knowledge is universal, like division, but procedures and how we get there differs. So treating math as universally the same can lead to inequities in the classroom. So not all students or cultures have the same processes and procedures on how they do math. And so actually, if you look at figure 5.1 in the book, it talks about subtraction algorithms from around the world. So this is really interesting, and I think it's important to note that different places like France, Vietnam, Thailand, Mexico, Latin America, and other places have a missing add-end approach where things are done mentally. And then equal addition subtraction is used in Latin America and the United States, less common. So how we do math varies by countries, and mental math is highly valued in many countries. What do you think is highly valued in the United States in math? I want you to think about that, and when we have our next live session, we're going to discuss it. So these are also things I want you to think about. When encountered by a child who uses an alternative approach, what will you do? And then how can we show children we're interested in their way of knowing math? So culture and language are intertwined. Strategies that support both culture and language are helpful. So invite children to talk to a partner before doing a whole group sharing. And provide sharing power in the classroom community. And basically allow children to share what they're comfortable with and what they're able to. And if you put them in partners and groups, allow them to do it that way as well. Or in smaller groups, it might be easier to share. So take consideration for the content, relationships, cultural knowledge, flexibility in approaches, use of accessible language contexts, a responsive learning community, and working in partnerships. Differentiation and strategies, which we talked about last presentation, communicate high expectations, they make content relevant, communicate the value of children's identities, and model shared power. Also, focusing on big ideas is extremely important. So making math simple or removing the language can take opportunities away for a child to learn. So when we're culturally responsive, we stay focused on those big ideas and refer to the Common Core standards. So I want you to think about how you can practice making math relevant to home and community. Think about the diverse students and the diverse communities you serve or will serve. And I want you to be ready with an example the next time we have a live session of where and how you can make math relevant to home and community. So I mentioned shared power earlier. So that's creating a positive classroom community where children feel as though they can participate and learn. In many classrooms, the teacher has the power of saying what's right and wrong, demonstrating how to solve problems, determining who will solve what problem. But in a shared power classroom, the teacher provides the students with some of this power. So it happens in the way that you assign groups, the way you seat children, the way you call on children, sends a message about who has power in your classroom. In reflective teaching, it's teaching the academic language of mathematics evolves over time, and it requires thoughtful and intentional planning. When you use those core standards, the curriculum framework, big ideas, essential questions, you really are helping to prepare students, young students, as we're talking about in this classroom, for a lifetime of success and true understanding of math. Okay, so culturally responsive teaching. Again, these are all the things we talked about. Bringing native language into the classroom, understanding the history and culture of our students and families, bringing community culture into the classroom, and also involving the family. Sorry, this is a little blurry, but again, culturally responsive math teaching supports deep learning, shares the authority, as we already talked about, applies mathematics. Again, we want our students to be able to apply what they're learning and to make it meaningful. Engages and values identities. So how can we honor the use of native language? So have children think about and state aloud the problem in their preferred language. If a child's not able to write down something yet, they can share it verbally, orally. If a child knows enough English, they can share it in English. Teachers can also look up keywords in the child's native language. Also, another strategy is pairing students with peers. That's a great way for them to feel more comfortable and learn. So use content and language objectives. Make sure children know the purpose of a lesson. Explains language expectations so children know what to expect. How can you explicitly teach vocabulary? Use picture dictionaries. You can have the students create foldables of key words for a topic. You can have games focused on math vocabulary. Interactive math word walls, including visuals and translations. Another really important thing is math anchor charts. So think of this. Table is one of the many words whose meaning in math differs from everyday use. Think of some other words that differ in everyday use. They might be a math word, but it could be confusing because it's used in other ways as well. So we have to think about this when we're teaching young children. So when you're making your lessons, make sure you're building background knowledge, use comprehensible input, engage children in discourse that reflects language needs, and plan cooperative and interdependent groups to support language. When you build background, you're taking into consideration native language and culture. You're using visuals and context to help children understand. When encountering content that is unfamiliar to students whose first language is not English, spend extra time. So when we say use comprehensible input. Make sure what you're saying is understandable to children. Modify by simplifying sentence structures. Limit the use of non-essential or confusing vocabulary. Model instructions and add pictures to stories. When we engage children in discourse, we can use gestures and visuals. Revoicing is a research-based strategy where you hear an idea more than once and hear it restated with appropriate language. Patiently wait for a student to respond. Offer opportunities to practice phrases or words. Allow time for children to explain or show how they came up with something. And planning cooperative groups, again, is a really great strategy. Groups provide opportunities to use language, and also you want to really think about how you're forming those groups. When you're thinking about assessing, children use a variety of visuals and gestures. Think about using their native language. Remember that children perform better when a test is given in their native language. Use lots of different multiple entry and exit points. Use diagnostic interviews. Limit the language and linguistic load. Again, take out any unnecessary language. Provide accommodations and incorporate self-assessment as an assessment. Okay, please let me know if you have any questions or comments, and thank you.